Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Chrism, and I would like to welcome you to this program all about your Kundalini awakening experiences, symptoms, signs, symptoms, strategies, and anything else that you can come into that allows you to have a beautiful and magnificent Kundalini awakening without fear and hopefully without anything that isn't necessary to your growth and the nutrition of your Kundalini. I'd like to just dive right into this. Kundalini in many, many ways will use your body in such a way as to give you extreme levels of beauty and joy and delightful experiences of just a vastly different perspective on life, how you see life, how you feel about the life that you're seeing, the different colors in nature, the different consistencies, and it's so much more than what a photograph can accurately depict, and yet it's like you're living in this amazing, beautiful sphere of color and life and energy and love and grace and indeed and hardship and challenge and difficulties and all those areas too. It is a superb example of divine refinement towards levels of grace that most people, we know most people can't really get a hold of. We know about how we feel about spirituality. We know about how we feel about divine being. We know how we feel about these different areas of say, the spiritual body that we see. But we're born tilting towards separation. We're born tilted towards compartmentalizing and externalizing our reality, and really kind of in many ways ignoring the inner spiritual landscape that is there to be explored, but it won't insert itself always in such a way that forces your attention upon it, especially when you're a child growing up and you're really learning how to walk in this external landscape. It's very important for you to do that. You have to learn how to survive in this environment, in the physical environment. And, mixed into that physical environment, of course, are the emotions and the emotional environment. And then, which directly affects the psychological environment, which directly affects, all of the different environments are really intertwined together. If you look at a flower of life, if you look at a flower of life, and if you just Google flower of life and then go to images, you'll see what I mean. You have 7 concentric rings intersecting with each other. And it's those 7 rings, which really can represent 7 chakras in many ways, that represent specific levels of interaction with the environment, both spiritual and physical and mental and emotional and psychological. Very important for people to understand that when you look at those concentric circles, they're all interbraided amongst themselves. So you might say the first chakra is interbraided with the fourth chakra, and so on and so forth. All of the chakras form a Vesica Pisces, and these are what form the petals of the flower of life. And these Vesica Pisces petals represent blended human expressive realities. So, you can have the second and the third having a shared petal of reality, and the fourth and the fifth, and so on and so forth. And then when all concentric circles are made, what they do is they automatically, without you drawing the flower of life, they form the 7th circle, which is in the middle. Very, very beautiful. It's an extreme level of teaching that allows us to understand that when the Kundalini comes up, well, we have activated that 7th circle, that crown chakra. And it was only by the activities of the preceding chakras and the petals of their blending and their intermixing as you go around the circle that form the ability to even have the seventh chakra awaken. And so it's a very, very beautiful symbol and of the external landscape affecting the spiritual expressive landscape at the top of the head. During these petals of interaction, before the seventh chakra has been formed or stimulated, in our case, the Shakti in the activated state will use all parts of the body, all parts of the physical body for her own purposes. And much of the time, her own purposes are really about giving people lessons based upon the physical expression, giving people lessons by the use of their body and emotions. This is not as easy as it might sound. I mean, I can sit here and say, oh, yeah, you're being tested by the Kundalini and it's affecting your physicalness and it's affecting these other areas of the interaction with you. And yet, it pales in comparison to the actual experience. It pales in comparison to the actual experience. A person can last week, we were in Minnesota, and we were preparing for a talk to be given for the seminar. And before I go much further, I would like to thank Rosemary Goliath and Joey Frost for their excellent work with regards to that seminar. I think the seminar went off beautifully, and I thank all of the participants that I can remember the names of. We have Max, and we had Kathy, and we had Jeremy, and we had Abby, and we had Derek, and we had Andrea, and oh my gosh, so we had Connor, and going around the circle in my mind there, of course, we had Joey and Rosemary, and we had Marcy, who was the owner, very gracious lady, who allowed us to use her beautiful barn and camp on her beautiful, beautiful Minnesota restored meadow. Wonderful, wonderful experience down there. So yeah, I want to thank everybody who was involved, and if I have forgotten your name, my apologies. But most of all, I would like to thank Rosemary and Joey for the tremendous amount of efforts and the tremendous amount of energy and beauty and joy and love and connectivity they put into this process. It's very, 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 very time well spent. Let me tell you, it was a very beautiful experience. And yet, Rosemary got rear-ended by a hit-and-run driver, and her car was totaled, and she was very fortunate that she wasn't injured, and the Kundalini's teaching her a lesson. The obvious lesson, of course, is, get the license plate of the vehicle that's hitting you, things of that nature. But there's also reverberations of that action that echoed throughout all the different talks we were giving, all the different times that we were given to prepare for those talks and prepare for the seminar, and some hurt feelings because communications weren't given because she was so busy having to replace the car that person totaled and then just drove off, seemingly without having any responsibility for it, which I think most of us know, at least here, that is not true. That person will pay for that. But it was very interesting to see the ripples in the pond. Now imagine if she had been injured. Well, then even within that kind of a context, there would have been, of course, there would have been some pretty heavy ripples in the pond, certainly for Rosemary, but it would also reverberated, strongly, through the seminar and the whole Kundalini process. And, we're talking about levels of forgiveness. We're talking about levels of responsibility. We're talking about levels of compassion. We're talking about levels of healing. We're talking about levels of having to spend money that did not need to be spent in order to replace a vehicle that did not need to be replaced, and so on and so forth. It's very, very important for people to understand that the Kundalini will work on you and with you without your permission, without warning you. And before I go even further, I just want to make sure I'm not talking to the air. So if Mary Jean or Emma or any of us.
You're not. I already asked, and everybody can hear you.
I had my eyes closed the whole time. Yeah, I had my eyes closed, and I just opened them up, and I'm going, oh, are they hearing this, or I'm just talking to the air here?
So all good, Chris.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so it's very important for people to begin to understand the level of testing that the Kundalini will inflict upon them. And that it's so important to be so completely surrendered. If you are not surrendered, then you're in resistance. There is no middle ground. You understand? If you're not surrendered, then you're in resistance. If you're in resistance, you're not surrendered, and so on and so forth. It's very, very clear to the Kundalini. Maybe not to the individual ego. And so a person can have their body used, can have their property used. A person who sustains an injury, well, that injury is feeding that person a test from the Kundalini, because the Kundalini is never separated from the body of the individual. Once the divine activation has occurred, the Kundalini stays with that individual for for the rest of the life. Stays in an active component, an active position of interaction with that individual. And so as we walk our activated and awakened lives, you can expect the Kundalini to give you some fairly strong tests. They're not all unpleasant, by the way. Many of them are opportunities for forgiveness, or opportunities for joy, opportunities to change the perspective, to look at an action or activity in a different way, and to allow a newer, stronger, greater perception given by the Kundalini to help you understand the greater ramification of the test that's being given. Often we get locked into our perspectives, and within that locking down of how we think or feel about any particular thing, we lose the opportunity to look at things in a different way, to feel things in a different way, to understand things in a different way. And by losing that expanded level of interaction with life, we lose very, very strong teachings that the Kundalini wants to give to us. And it's very important to do that. It's very important to be flexible in the way your concretized societal programmed thinking can be. And let's just look at some of the physical issues. What happens when you get cancer? Oh my God, is cancer permanent? Is it a death sentence? Is the Kundalini just going to sit there and watch you shrivel up into a giant tumor sitting in his chair talking into a computer screen? The body is kind of like a big old tumor, but I won't go there with that. Why would that occur? What are the lessons there? What are the lessons about the immune system? What are the lessons about emotionally charged thoughts that constantly get repeated into the inner space of the individual? Oh, this is terrible. I hate my life. I hate my life. I hate my life. I hate my life. Well, you give that into the equation enough times, and the Kundalini is going to give you reason to hate your life. Okay? The Kundalini is impossible. The Kundalini is impossible. The Kundalini is impossible. The Kundalini is impossible. Well, the Kundalini will become impossible for you. If you keep saying things that are programming your consciousness in a certain way, well, that is going to be the fruition of your own personal programming. And so if you're going to have to do that stuff, say things like, I love my life. I love my life. I love my life. The Kundalini is wonderful. It's beautiful. I love the Kundalini. Or I surrender to the Kundalini. I surrender to the Kundalini. I surrender my body, my heart, my mind, my soul, my choices, my personal control. I surrender everything to the Kundalini. And you say that over and over, and guess what? The same thing occurs. You're given that choice. You're given that option to some degree. Kundalini, in other ways, just won't let you do anything that it doesn't want you to do. And so in those cases, you don't have the choice. So, if let's just say that, we did the injury aspect. Let's look at, there was a question about pregnancy on the group. So let's just say somebody's trying for pregnancy, trying, and they're never allowed to do it. They're never allowed to conceive. Nothing happens at all. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, that happens, and the assault of the waiting for it to happen and the trying for it to happen and the worrying about, oh my God, there's no progeny here. The name shall not be put into the, I won't have, I'm sorry. Oh, the ancestral name will not go on, and if they're trying, and then they finally get one. There's a level of appreciation, a level of gratitude that also is part of the Kundalini equation. And too, and let's just take it on the other side, if it's unwanted, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're presented with this and blah, 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 and then, you're looking into the medical aspects of it, you're looking into the chemical aspects of it, you're looking into the psychological and emotional aspects of it, which can be so severe for people. So severe that once again, the Kundalini is testing the individual. The test is all about, do you surrender? Don't you surrender? And within the context of surrendering, do you proceed? Don't you proceed? What choices do you make inside of this elevated level of testing that the Kundalini will give to a person? And these are very, 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 very intimate areas, and it's not just something you can just throw away on a dime. There's a lot of thought, there's a lot of consideration, especially with a Kundalini activated or awakened individual. And so, there's another aspect where the Kundalini is totally testing the individual and gauging their response, looking at their response, gauging the response of the people around them, and looking at those responses and offering up specific choices and seeing whether the person is able, one, to recognize the choice that the Kundalini is giving it, and two, if through that recognition they're able to act on that choice. And it's so important for people to learn how to act on those choices that the Kundalini has given to them. And that doesn't mean that you don't do your mundane research. Of course you do. If you have the broken arm, well, then as a teacher, I would counsel you to go to the ER. But you may not want to do that. So maybe she's giving you an alternate choice. Maybe you need to go to your naturopath first. But I'm sure he'd just send you over to the ER. The choice is to do nothing and suffer, or go to a facility that can help that mend and allow that to be mended. And so, where does the person make those choices? How are those choices come into being? And, if we move it beyond the whole medical paradigm, you're selling your house. Well, in a way, in a Kundalini context, when you sell your house, in a way, you're selling yourself. You put yourself on the market. And you clean the house, you made all these preparations, and the lawn looks great, and the roses look great, and everything looks great. The pool is cleaned, the toilet is cleaned. Everything looks good, and yet nobody's buying it. Nobody's buying it. And how does that affect you? How does that affect your psychology? How does that affect your emotions? How does that affect how much your yourself is being invalidated or validated by the situation? And you need to look at that. That would also be considered a Kundalini awakened test. The test will use your property. She will use your physical body in any way she wants. If she wants you to have a testicular cancer or colorectal cancer, and I only use those because those are the intimate areas that we all, like to hide from each other. And so, and then all of a sudden you don't get to hide that because people are sticking their fingers up certain areas or massaging certain areas that nobody else gets to massage except your lover or somebody very close to you. And so, you're being pushed into exposing yourself to the judgmental viewing of strangers. And this is a way that is often worked by the Kundalini to refine the ego. In many, many ways, there's nothing that is private. There's actually, and always, there's nothing that is private except in our society. And we have to dip into the society, even as awakened people. We have to dip right back into society every time. We have to dip into it. When we drive the car to the grocery store, even when we walk to the grocery store, we're stopping at the stoplight. We're walking across when the light says we can walk. It's all this very regimented programming that is often the case within, a city environment, within society, and we have to blend in with that. We stand in line to pay for our groceries. We stand in line to get the gasoline or the petrol for the car. We stand in line at the doctor's office. We stand in line just to go see a movie. We stand in line. We participate in society while at the same time our Kundalini is expanding us beyond society. But we still dip into the societal stream. And why would that be? Why would we dip into the societal stream? Let me ask somebody here. Oh, yes. I would like to introduce my co-host, Her Holiness, Centaur Kundalini, who does many, many beneficial things for the Kundalini Awakening systems, groups, and communities. And I just would like to present her in a way that is very, very, to demonstrate the gratitude that I have and that the Kundalini has for all the hard work that she does. Hello, Centaura.
Hi, Chrism.
Why do we need to dip in? Why do we need to dip into that stream?
We need to dip into that stream in order to be tested, in order to see where we are within our process, to be tested and retested, I guess.
Well, really, I mean, what's no?
No. I love it.
The overarching thing is like, because you don't have to be in society to be tested by Kundalini. You can be out there in the middle of nowhere, and she will test you. So it is. And Cole says on the chat room to share radiance. It's a little bit closer. We have to be tested in society so that we can begin. There's many reasons, and I'm just going to state a few here. Of course, Cole says to share the radiance, and I think big thumbs up to Cole for that. It's very cool. And for you, Centaur, big thumbs up for just the idea of continuing to be tested. That's a big thumbs up answer too. But also, when you look at society, we're here to learn to accept our semi-divinity, that precious quality of half of ourselves being totally committed to the Kundalini. And literally, it's not just half, it's the whole body, the whole self. It's just that the other half retains the ability to interact and to give into society and to reflect from society and to really begin to manifest a different, higher quality of societal engagement inside of the Kundalini. Because I can say, oh yeah, you cut the body down the middle, and from the groin up through the top of the head, and they're okay. One half's divine, the other half isn't. Well, that's just not how it works. It's just that the idea that divinity is so compartmentalized is not correct, and yet within society, it's easier for us to get an idea that if we separate out the components of the equation is easier to solve. Kundalini awakening comes to every single cell in the body. Every single cell is activated and awakened and transformed and transforming. Okay, and as we engage in that transformation, we are still engaging in the life of society. We're still making choices, eating food, going to the bathroom in the ways that our society has come to accept, driving a car, walking across the street, taking our kids to school, partaking in the various entertainments and things of that nature. Working to surrender oneself to the Kundalini, I think, is a constant level of testing that demands both surrender to the divine aspect of the human, that is, just as I said before, constantly transforming, constantly changing, but also surrendering to the perspective on society that the Kundalini wants the person to have. So the injury, why did the injury occur? What happened with the injury? Was it incurred by somebody else? Did Rosemary get rear-ended, and did her fingernail break because she was holding onto the wheel so tight, or whatever it was? What is the lesson there? What is the lesson? This is the second time that I know for a fact that Rosemary has been rear-ended because I was with her at least the first time. I remember that hit. That was a pretty strong hit. I can only imagine what this last one must have felt like for her. My heart goes out to her for the loss of her property and the shock, and the shock to the seminar, the shock to the speaking arrangements, the shock to her bank account, and the shock to the owner of the Prairie as well. We missed a meeting because we spent all day at a car dealership trying to get a car that was appropriate for her. And so we dive into these areas and we dip into these areas, and sometimes the Kundalini will use the body in such a way as to go into the most sensitive areas of the human understanding of life, to go deep down into the most inadmissible places and the most sensitive. I know I use that word again, but I just, the English language is very, very limited when it comes to these levels of intimacy that the Kundalini will take in. I mean, imagine the Kundalini will determine whether or not you're pregnant, whether or not you're going to have that pregnancy, whether or not that pregnancy is going to be a miscarriage, is going to be taken care of chemically, or is going to come to full term, all these things. I mean, that's extremely intimate. I mean, the right to lifers and this whole big conversation in the United States, that's a big deal. I remember breaking my arm in the 7th grade, by skipping so many bars on the ladder. Boy, I tell you what, that could have been the story of my life. Skipping the steps. These are the people that want to have their third eye open. And it's just like, oh, Master Chrism, open my third eye. They have no clue what they're asking. And so I remember standing on the lateral bars there and going, okay, if I should be able to skip 5 of those. Oh my God. I jumped out into the air. I grabbed that first bar and I swung my body forward as much as I can and I skipped, and I was just able to grab that 5th bar and get it all the way there, and I was slammed back on the ground on my back, slamming my wrist into the soil, compound fracture, both bones sticking out. Oh my God, the pain! I cannot tell you. This is a Kundalini lesson 2. You don't get to skip the steps. Certainly not within the Kundalini. And I'm sorry, I've been closing my eyes. People have been talking on here. Okay, no, it's okay. So yeah. I tried to skip all these steps, and I was severely punished. I was in a cast for 6 months. This is a 12-year-old. You can't play, you can't swim. People get to sign your cast, but that gets old pretty quick. They didn't have the waterproof cast back then. I mean, I'm surprised they even had invented casts when I was 12. So yeah, it was a very, very, very difficult lesson. But these are the lessons that the Kundalini will also give to us. I'm the only one in my family that's broken a bone twice. Jeez Louise. The first time I was 9 and I was doing flips out of a swing. And I did a flip out of the swing, and instead of just doing a flip, I did a 1.5, landed on my back and slammed the very same wrist into the ground and cracked it. And I had to wear a cast for another long period of time. And oh my God, the pain, right? It's always been the right arm, interestingly enough. And I'm right-handed. And so I think, maybe the Kundalini was saying, maybe you need to do a little bit more with your left hand. So anyway, what do you think about that, Santara? What do you think about these tests that she gives to us, these tests of injury, these tests of property, these tests of intimacy, these tests that go against societal norm or with a societal norm? How do you feel this is manifested in your life?
Oh, where do I begin? Well, I have some story and some experience of breaks. As you had, Chrism, I broke my ankle twice, and I had some amazing experiences. Yeah, around that. The first time was during my activation phase, and when the cast was put on, I had extreme pain in it, and I had to go down and have it re-put on again, taken off and put on. My foot had been put incorrectly into it. And I remember getting out of the car, and John was holding some plants in the garden when I got out of the car, and he dropped the hose. And the water, this is no word of a lie, literally shot into the toe. I was 6 feet away from him, shot straight into the toe of my cast and destroyed the cast.
Oh.
And I had to go get it off again. And there was
But this time they put it in right, correct?
Well, no, they had put it in right this time when the water came on again. Anyway, it's a long story, Chrism, but basically 2 or 3 more things happened, and I ended up leaving the cast off. And something very similar, and that was a big deal for me at the time. And something similar happened when I broke my wrist. I fell and I broke my wrist, and when I got the cast on, something in me was saying, this doesn't feel right. Long story short, Chrism, I had the cast removed twice, and when I was x-rayed again, it was discovered that I had 2 different breaks that were contradictory. They couldn't actually happen with the fall. If you fell one way, you did one break, and if you fell the other way, you did the other break. And I ended up again not wearing a cast, and the Kundalini healing that. But there was a whole lot of other teachings around that for me as well, and it was very much about, trusting the Kundalini at that particular time. And another thing about pregnancy, I wanted to become pregnant. I had had a few children, but I thought it was a matter of just deciding to become pregnant. And for 10 years, we did not become pregnant. And I had this dream about having a little boy, and I knew that he was coming, and there was huge, that was the Kundalini. I didn't know a lot of that at the time, but when I look back, I can clearly see what she was doing at the time, of what she was teaching me, and the different things that I had to do, how I had to come into an acceptance that I wasn't in control of my own life and things like that. And since the Kundalini came, Chrism, the list is endless, really, of the very small ways that this is done and the very big ways that this is done, from moving, being forced.
We are not in control of our life. Within the Kundalini gets to be in control of our life. And those are very good examples, Amelia. Thank you for that. I'm going to go on over here to Rosemary here. And I'd like to say hello, Rosemary.
Hi there.
You sound a little different today. How are you?
I'm good.
Did you survive the whole seminar?
Oh, I did, and have been in communication with a couple people, and thank you again for staying in town for Monday evening and being with our community. That was really a great blessing. Additional blessing.
Have you seen, first of all, is your new car okay for you?
Well, they're working on that. There's a couple of little things. I drove the other one up there yesterday, and he said, our friend Mike said, no, you just wait till I call you, till I get that window taken care of. So I drove
good.
back home and waiting. Okay,
all right. Well, I just wanted to say once again, thank you for organizing. Thank you to you and Joey, who's also listening right now. Thank you both for organizing and committing the time and strength and energy into the seminar. And have you been able to see the ramifications of the test that I think the Kundalini set out for you with regards to getting rear-ended and everything? And what does it mean to be hit from behind to you?
Well, actually, Chrism, I don't know if this serves our conversation, but I wasn't hit from behind.
Where were you hit? I thought you were.
No. I was going ahead on a green light, and somebody came ready to turn and didn't wait and just came and hit me the front of the car.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And what I would like to share, if I may, was I want to say that moment I remembered you saying everything has a Kundalini signature. And for the impact on the car and its damage, I did not feel anything, not in any cell of my body, of anything like anything happened. Likewise, emotionally, there was nothing of disturbance. There was a peacefulness, and all of that very powerful for me from what you have taught us.
Well, let me tell you, Rosemary, I teach from experience. I went into a very large oak tree at 45 miles per hour, avoiding animals on the road, and I went straight into it. I have pictures of it, and that van literally folded itself around the trunk of the tree. I remember the impact. I remember my hand on the wheel. I remember everything crystal clear, and somehow or other, she did not allow me to be injured. I mean, I think I had maybe a little tiny scrape. And boy, you look at the picture, and, people were saying that I shouldn't have walked away from that. Not only did I walk away from that, but I ran up the hill so that people wouldn't come down and blindly come into an accident scene. And it was very, very interesting. I was shaken up a bit. But, yeah, it was a very, very interesting avoid wildlife just to run into wildlife. kind of a strange scenario. Well, I'm glad that you're okay, and I'm glad that they're working on the car that you like, and I'm really, really grateful and thankful to you and to Joey and to Katie and Ken and everybody who partook of the seminar. So thank you, my dear.
Yes, and I would like, if I may, just encourage anyone who would like Chrism to come to your city. It is a lot of work, only because this is not well known. And there are people that we're trying to reach who know what we're talking about and are being touched by it. And it's amazing how that unfolds. And the people that do come and do show up and where they are in their journeys. But and I repeat, of course it is a lot of work, just because it's not the main thing to do today. But it's worth so much. It is worth so much. It is
actually the main thing to do today, Rosemary. It is the main thing. It should be, and it will be very soon, become a very, very main thing to do.
Yeah, those aren't the right words, but I'm saying. I don't know what the words are for that, but it's getting what we have to say to those people who are ready. I guess that's what I want to say.
That's right. Well, I want to thank you once again for all of your hard work, and I'm going to put you into the Shiva blue, the sacred male blue, and I just want to continue with this. She will use your body. She will use your property. She will use your mind. She will use your emotion. She may use more than one body. So we have the 5 bodies of human expression: the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, the psychological or ego body, and we have the spiritual body. And she will use all of those in combination in order to elicit specific tests, often of surrender, upon the individual. What if a person was raped and became pregnant through rape? Well, what about that? Oh my God, what is the Kundalini test there? And all this time, Chrism's telling you, oh yeah, Kundalini's got your back, and Kundalini is protecting you, and she cares about you, and she loves you, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what happened here? How is I've been trusting the Kundalini this whole time, and I've been raped. And what? I'm pregnant? I mean, think about that scenario, ladies and gentlemen. And what would the Kundalini be testing you there with? What kind of levels of surrender are involved with that? I mean, let me go over here to Elizabeth. Here's Elizabeth Gonzalez, Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez coming on. And hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, Chrism.
Hey, how are you? How's Loranya?
Well, I've had a couple things going on this week, and coincidentally, as usual, it's exactly about all of this. The first one, I'm just blowing my mind here. But the first one, she's just been communicating to me about having for me to have a fuller level of awareness about just all of this, about the testing that's being done, about she wants me to be more fully aware in every moment, in every waking situation, every animal, every plant. She's saying every color, every
Just a second. Just a second, Elizabeth. Centaur, we got a caller. Can you look to the caller? We've got a caller on the bottom of the list there. Please continue, Elizabeth.
Okay. So anyway, just a greater level, not just a greater level of awareness of every single moment, everything happening and why it's happening, but she's asking me to take a deeper look, like, for instance, abundances or things that you do a lot, or patterns your ego repeats, or things you put in your body that she wants me to take a deeper look at the emotional reason, underlying reason why.
Right.
I'm guessing that is so that I'm more aware of what she's trying to show me, what she's trying to teach me, and what she's trying to break me of such habits. And like the deeper emotional and psychological and physical, all of that. What's the reason you're doing that? What's the reason you keep doing that? Why is this coming to you? Why is that, just to have a greater level of awareness. What would
Laurania's take? Oh, I'm sorry. You have another one. Go ahead, please.
Oh, no. The second thing is that long story short, I won't even go into how I did it, but I very badly this week on Sunday sunburned the soft tissue of my eyelids and all around my eyes. I know.
Ooh.
And so I had to spend, and I'm still in it because now it's peeling and like leather like that. I've had giant blisters all the way around my eyes. I've had to go to work every day looking like a reptile with just horrible scaly. I mean, Santara can relate to this. Is when she was here with the skin thing. I mean, I've just got big blisters all around the eyes, leather like red, scaly, peeling. It's fabulous.
How does that occur? I mean, was it just too much sun?
Yeah. I was just out weeding and just wasn't paying attention and didn't have sunscreen on and didn't think I was out there and I wasn't aware of, I wasn't being aware of what I was doing, why I was doing it, whatever. And so anyway, I've had this to deal with, and it's been really interesting. I wake up with my eyes so swollen shut that it takes me about an hour or two to ice them to the point where I can actually see out of my eyes.
I'm sorry. My God, I want to send healing to you.
Injury for real. But it's been a complete, it's everything. It's ego. It's, you get tested with an injury like this. Oh my gosh. I've had to take my parents 2 hours out of town to go to the doctor with my eyeballs swollen, and I've had to work and people looking at me, and I'm like, I'm not the elephant woman, I swear. Had people come into town to visit us yesterday I haven't seen in 25 years, and I had to greet them with hello, sorry,
my God.
Look away. Feel free to look away.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway.
Well, you see, there you go. I mean, that is right in line with what we're talking about today. Right in line. And then what if you're raped and you got pregnant from that rapist? Well, what does Laurania say about that?
Deeper, again, it's got to be, you have to look at the deeper levels of what that's trying to teach you.
The deeper meaning.
Emotionally, psychologically, physically, what is all that? It's a deeper thing than just what it appears on the surface,
Right. That's right. And just,
but not for your ego to decide so much.
Yeah.
What,
well, but that's
know.
the one that's going to be responding the most. The ego is going to be
Yes.
crying out, WTF is this? I trusted Shakti. I trusted my teacher. I trusted these people. I trusted my guru. I trusted my society. And look what happened to me. And what the heck is going on? And where do you find solace? Where do you find the trust? That is abrogated trust. That trust has been stepped on really hard. And what would be the lesson? I want people to give me their ideas of the lesson. What would the lesson be, or at least one of them be, in your opinion, Elizabeth?
Oh, I mean, it's a whole new level of surrender. That's for sure, and trust. I mean, how you would have to.
How do you trust when the trust has been broken?
I don't know. I mean, because it would happen for a reason. So you would have to trust that God, that the Kundalini, that the divine has a greater lesson to. I mean, it might have to do with. Is it someone who would be then having the child? Maybe it's all about the child and what that child is going to teach you about unconditional love. Maybe they won't.
Maybe they don't want to keep the child.
And maybe they don't. And so that would be a whole other. So yeah, I mean, it's complicated.
It's complicated. It is indeed. And I want to thank you, my dear. I want to thank you, Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez. I want everybody to send healing to your eyes. Lots of ice, lots of coolness. Oh my God, that sounds terrible. I'm so sorry that you're going through that. And always, it's an extreme pleasure to have you on the program here, both of you.
Thank you.
Okay, putting you into Shiva Blue. And let's see, we have a listener down there, so that's okay. I'm just curious about this because the whole abortion thing is such a hot button, issue in our society. And I want to know what Rosemary thinks about this. Hi, Rosemary.
Hi.
Have you been listening?
I am listening. When you said about this, what aspect of it are you referring?
If a person gets raped and they become pregnant from the rape, and they've been taught to trust Shakti, trust their guru, trust all these things, and on that rape happens, what's going on with that, do you think?
Well, that's certainly beyond that we could figure out. That because we didn't participate in that by our choosing, for example, we don't realize that there's a lot that goes on around.
Didn't we though? Didn't we participate in that by our choosing? Didn't we do that?
Rape.
Well, hey, you got up at a certain time in the morning, you had breakfast, you did whatever you had to do, you made all the steps you had to do that day, and towards whenever that rape took place, you were in that place at that time, in that person's presence, and boom. Don't you think there was a little bit of choice in there?
I wouldn't have thought of it that way. I mean, all of the details of life, I guess, some way we're choosing them, but they don't.
I mean, it's the same thing as the mother.
What we say mean.
Well, I mean, a mother gets her kids ready for school, gets them all up, gets their lunches made and their breakfast, and herds them all out to the car, gets them all into the car, and drives up to an intersection. At the very same time she drives up to that intersection, a big tree limb falls on the car, crushes and kills everybody. What's the lesson there?
Well, we don't know when that final moment is coming.
No. You're pushing the real issue aside. She made all the choices to be at that time, at that place, at the exact moment that branch would fall on the car. They all did. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Isn't there a matter of choice there too?
Choice for the details, but not for the impact.
Choice. I mean, well, all the details will end up to the impact, Rosemary. That's what I'm saying. all the choices that she made equaled the impact that killed them all. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
1 plus 2 equals 3 plus 4 equals 7 plus 5 equals 12. The arithmetic is right there. But we don't like to see that. We don't like to look at all the choices we make in order to have a bad thing happen, or even a bad thing that can be a good thing depending on the perspective and the level of expanded consciousness that it requires to see beyond what the ego allows us to appreciate. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, my dear. I'm going to put you into the Shiva Blue, and I'm going to ask Santara what she thinks about this. What do you think about this?
Well, something I think about trust. Trust is interesting. There's two things. Trust, when it's broken, like, is it because we have conditions on our trust, that we trust with expectations
well,
of having...
Isn't that an interesting concept that you bring up? My gosh, you're right. We have expectations within our trust, conditions, like you say. We're not surrendering to Kundalini unconditionally, are we?
No.
Interesting. So now there's a new perspective. Continue, my dear.
And then as well that I wanted to ask you was, I can see how all the choices we made in our day, in that particular day, led us, we'll say, to that tree falling upon our car. What's the difference between that and predestination, or is there a difference?
I would say our choices cause us our destiny. Predestination relates to not having a choice.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So
you see the difference? I mean, this woman made all the choices. The kids made all the choices. One of the kids could have dragged it out much longer, and the timing would have been just enough so that tree would have fallen before they got there.
Yes, and that happens too, doesn't it? The person who didn't get the plane, or the person, and they know that something
right.
has
They're the ones that
something. Yeah.
So
it's interesting because I find it difficult to completely understand. Like, I see what you're saying, absolutely, and yet I think, is that destiny, whereby we have no choice really? I don't know, Chrism. I haven't that completely...
I think we do. We have a patina, Patina. We have a patina of choice within this physical expression. Certainly, it's a patina, and that patina gets thinner and thinner the deeper and deeper we get into Kundalini. But that
makes sense.
She still gives us some choice, and so the choice, like you mentioned earlier, is like, what level of surrender do you have? Is the surrender based on expectation? Is it based on, do you have an expanded consciousness? Is your expanded consciousness viewing all angles from a perspective that is far away from the eruptive firestorm of egocentrism that typically would accompany such an event? Where are you with that? And when you start questioning the integrity of your Kundalini, and you're saying, well, how could this have been happening? And it's like, maybe it's an invitation to look deeper into how that had been happening and what could have been done to change. Well, nothing could have been done to change it. You can't go back in time and go, oh, well, geez, if I spend a little more time in the bathroom, well, then that guy will go after somebody else, right? You can't go into it because it happened to you. You're inside the experience, and you're dealing with the ramifications of the experience. And for you to say, fall off of the wagon of trust that the Kundalini represents can merely be a very, very strong invitation into finding an expanded awareness that includes the level of activity, the level of refinement, the level of teaching that this painful, extremely painful, violating event can procure within an individual. It's very important that you don't. Well, I guess would that be pouring out the baby with the bathwater, that type of a thing, getting rid of your nose to spite your face type of thing. And the scenario is that within the Kundalini context, we must always look at an activity upon our body, and in this case with a woman, very, very intimate areas of the body, and dealing with reproduction and the whole bit, and expand the awareness and look at our level of surrender and look at how we're responding to the blame and how we're responding to the interaction with that life now there, and the medical authorities, and those options there, the chemical authorities and those options there, and your own scenario. Where are you in life? What are you doing in life? And this, is the child to be kept? Is it not to be kept? And I am pro choice. I'm a pro-choice individual. I feel that, and I've always been that way. They have never ever been able to convince me that consciousness begins at conception. I've never bought into that. And I know that we can all have our own choices about that, how we want to think about that. But I have always, since I was a kid, since I even knew about the idea of abortion, that whole idea was being brought up, Roe v. Wade and all that in the United States here. I've always been pro-choice. I always felt that, the person that bears most of the choice making in that scenario is the person that's going to bear the child. Hello. And so I am pro-choice, and so I don't have, and I know that the consciousness doesn't enter the child until way later than the conception, and I know that for much of the time at the beginning, it's just basically cells dividing. The soul has not entered into the cells. Actually, the cells themselves represent the mother and the father. Those cells are dividing and forming the fibroblast, or the name that the medical language calls it. We can't call it an expanded embryo. Oh no, that's just too technical. So if a person runs into that type of a scenario, they really are going to want to expand their consciousness, expand their awareness. Look at the angles of expectation. Look at the angles of dependency. Look at the angles of personal responsibility. Look at the angles of trust. To say a person totally trusted everything they were given to do. They were, and the trust was true, and they weren't resisting on any level whatsoever. And gosh, that same type of a scenario occurred to them. I would have to say that your trust is being tested. Your trust is being tried and strengthened through adversity, and that you're not to give up onto it. You are not to abandon it. You are to increase that trust. Trust the trust. Right?
Yeah, that's the lesson, isn't it? To increase that which you actually want to have broken, or that has broken. You have to turn that around and increase it, and 100% change and go, change what your trust was before into something newer.
I think it would be an invitation into bliss. Seriously, because that's such a severe thing. That's such a severe thing that it's happened to a person. The violation, all of that stuff, and it's a very strong thing. And the scenario would be to trust, to increase your trust. And if the person was able to take that step, which goes against every aspect of ego society, to increase the trust after the trust has seemingly been broken, I think that is an invitation into bliss and an invitation into a huge level of Kundalini expansion within the individual. Huge level. I think the greater the test, the greater the reward for passing that test. And we must always go towards Kundalini. Always. Always. We must go towards the divine that is activated or awakened within us, no matter what the test may be. I watched my father starve to death with esophageal cancer. Came on so fast, came on so strong, and his personality, very obstinate personality. I'm not going to do any of that damn medical stuff, and he just wasn't interested in stopping it medically, And you, Centaur, you came over and gave him a healing all the way from Ireland, right?
Right. Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. I do indeed, Chrism. Yeah.
And he still died. He still died. And what, Kundalini awakened child. Now, I had the expanded consciousness during his whole death. I had it. I was looking at it. I could see what was going to happen. I could see the writing on the wall, and I was just there to support him in this process. I was to ask my Kundalini to stop it. The only thing I was trying to give him a healing for was comfort on that path. But starvation is just not a comfortable thing. It's very, very uncomfortable, very, very painful. And yet that's what occurred. And so, do I go to Kundalini and say, oh, Kundalini, I trusted you. You gave me these skills, these healing skills, and where is my dad right now? Hello. And you turn around and blame the Kundalini for giving you these skills and these skill sets and that you can help other people. And, and I helped another guy with esophageal cancer too, using just the Kundalini. And oh my gosh, he started coming around until he started drinking again with, alcohol, and that totally erased that healing. But oh my gosh, Kundalini gave me the expanded skills of a healer, and it works, and I was able to see that it worked, and oh my gosh, but how come my dad didn't get to partake of those skills? Where does the trust go inside of adversity? Where the ego, looking at the balance sheet, going, wait a minute. I trusted you. You gave me a skill. I tried the skill, and it didn't work, and he's dead. And why should I trust you any further? Why should I trust you? Kundalini. You see my point? We must expand our levels of trust beyond fear of loss and want of gain. And this would be both of those. Fear of loss, fear of him dying, and want of gain, wanting him to live. We must expand our trust and the activities of trust beyond the egotistical realm. Because she will test us in these areas. And we cannot constantly respond from an egotistical basis. We must expand our consciousness. And that includes our ego. We must expand the ego forcibly. It will come kicking and screaming. All of a sudden, he couldn't eat food. Anything he ate, he swallowed about a little less than halfway, and then it all came back up. Chewed or unchewed, it all came back up. He couldn't swallow anything, barely even fluid. They give you the Ensure for people that have that thing, and, the milkshakes. And he could barely get one can of that down. He starved to death right in front of me. We have to expand our trust. We have to trust the trust. Trust the trust that the Kundalini has in us. We have to trust the Kundalini beyond parameters of comfort, beyond parameters of acceptability. We have to watch our actions and our activities when disaster strikes us. Like the woman with the kids in the branch, like the person that got raped and pregnant, like the guy that hit Rosemary and drove away. We have to expand our levels of trust. And in many ways, expand our levels of forgiveness and tolerance and honesty and truth. And I'm going to turn it on over to you. Centaur, I believe you have some announcements to make.
Can I ask a question before we do that?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, thank you. Does the Kundalini trust in us, or am I giving a human condition to the Kundalini that doesn't exist?
Yeah, the Kundalini knows us better than we know ourselves. She's giving tests to us. He, sacred male, is giving tests to us. I think it trusts our soul implicitly, but it's really, it's really training the ego. It's really training the reliance on societal norms. It's really training the person to move a certain way. And so what they do is they give us opportunities, sometimes excruciating opportunities. And I think the trust is there to some degree because a person is not given a test without a certain level of trust from the Kundalini that they have the ability to pass that test.
Yeah, okay.
And for those of you that are getting kicked off of Blog Talk, I see on the chat room, that's just typical Blog Talk radio there. So no worries. Expand your consciousness.
I see that. Emma is
Emma's here. She's gone. Here gone. I'm sorry.
Hi,
Emma.
Emma. She's back. Hi, Emma. Yeah, that's a pain, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, well, I thank you, Chrism.
Yep.
I do have a few announcements. I want to give, the first thing I'll do is I blog the website for people who want to make a donation. It's www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com, and the donate button is there. You can use PayPal or a credit card. www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And the other thing I would like to announce is the seminar that is going to be happening over in, where is it happening? In Berlin. I have a tab open here and it's not there. Oh no, what happened is it's gone. Okay, well I can give you the dates. The dates are the 3rd and 4th. It's the first weekend in September. I think it's the 3rd and 4th of September, or the 4th and 5th. It's the Saturday and the Sunday, which is the 3rd and 4th of September. And it's happening in Berlin, and Manisha and Sultanter are organizing it. And you can make contact with them. Manish is on the Facebook group, and there's going to be an event published tomorrow, as far as I know. Would like to let you know that the cost of the seminar is going to be €180 as an early bird, and if that is paid before the beginning of April, well, that's an excellent price for 2 full-day seminars. And also then after that, the price is $220.
Did you say April? Did you say April?
April? I did not. Tell me I didn't say April.
You said April. April's coming down, my dear.
Yeah, August. That's really fast. August. So €180 before the beginning of August. I think it's the 5th of August, and after that it reverts to €220. It's two full days, 9 in the morning until, is it 5 or 6 in the evening? And the event page is going to be published, and we'll be putting that up as well, the link for that, on all of Chrism's Kundalini groups. So within the next few days, you can go there and you will find the event page listed, and all the information is there. And so Tanter is creating that event for the seminar. So please consider coming, because at the moment as well, there are excellently good value flights into Berlin. I know that you can fly from Ireland and the United Kingdom return. Well, I don't know about the sterling, but from Ireland you can fly for €60 return at the moment, coming in before that weekend and going out again. So if you were to fly in, say, on the Friday, fly out on the Monday, it's costing €60. And I've been looking a little bit on the web, and accommodation is actually quite reasonable in Berlin. So, so I would be inviting everybody who's listening to this, who is listening from Europe in particular, to consider coming. And keep an eye on the event that will be published on Chrism's Facebook groups. September 3rd, September 4th. That's it, Chrism.
Thank you, Amelia Santara. Thank you very much. So I would like people to think about their level of trust in the Kundalini, and during your harshest, hardest, deepest, most pronounced torment, where is your trust? Can you trust the trust? Can you expand the level of trust that you have inside of this terrible activity, and go further into the Kundalini and look? Don't look for blame. Don't look for blame. Don't look for anything other than the lesson that is being offered to you at that time. A child goes missing, and nothing to do with the parents. They were great parents. They looked after that child. They made sure that child was safe. But somebody just came up and scooped them away. And what happens to the parents? And where, all of a sudden the blame game goes around, and it has the possibility of ripping that relationship to shreds if that child isn't found, or worse, if that child is found dead somewhere. This happens today in this world. And I hate to say it, but I think it happens all the time. Maybe not in your city, maybe not in your country, maybe not in your continent, but somewhere in this world this is occurring. And what happens to the levels of trust there? Say these are Kundalini awakened people. Who do they blame? Well, I think they'll blame themselves, first of all. And then they'll reach out and they'll blame God. And through God, they're going to blame Kundalini. And from an egotistical society-based standpoint, I would not blame them one bit. From a Kundalini standpoint, it's totally inappropriate. But the pain is so sharp. The agony is so real. The agony is so sharp and so real that it drives a person beyond their ability to manage themselves for a time. Perhaps a long time. I gave Shaktipat to a woman in Georgia. She took me to a public park, and she laid down on a picnic table, and I gave her Shaktipat overlooking these beautiful wetlands in Georgia. And the Shaktipat took very quickly, and then her dad died about a month later. And she was deep into the Kundalini at that time. And so her grief was amplified tremendously. And she blamed me. She blamed me, and she blamed me, and she excommunicated me after telling me that she blamed me for that. All I could do was apologize. But I didn't really feel the apology. But I know her ego needed to hear me say it. So I said it. That's a test from the Kundalini. Dad was going to die no matter what. Dad had cancer. I don't know what kind of cancer, but I think he had cancer. And inside of the Kundalini amplification, the agony of loss, the agony of trust that has seemingly been shredded is huge. It's absolutely stupendous. And it takes a bit for a person to get used to it. And not that you ever get used to that, but it takes a person a little bit before they can acclimatize a bit, enough so that they can maybe look at a higher a higher consciousness working here, a level of testing, an opportunity to expand the awareness beyond the ego addiction to emotional outbursts. This is coming straight from my Kundalini right now, straight up. It is recognized that the challenge is not easy. It is recognized that the challenge is painful. It is recognized that the challenge, by design, must be this way. It must be this way. If it was any easier, it wouldn't be as hard of a test as it needs to be. And it will deal with the flesh of your family, the flesh of yourself, the flesh of a stranger, the flesh of a child. It doesn't matter. It will come and it will have a direct effect upon the physical well-being of an individual. And you must take that step and trust your trust. Trust the trust of the Kundalini. Anybody listening to this, or if this was written down and the sentence said, trust your trust, that won't make very much sense to anybody. But listening to this program, listening to the concepts and the examples that are being given, I think it makes very good sense. It's a very clear sense. I think it's very important for people to get a grasp on what the qualities of their trust are. Is it unconditional trust? Really, folks? If your kid gets abducted, if your child gets raped and killed, are you going to just leap on into unconditional trust and say, oh, the Kundalini made it okay? No, you'll fall into blame too. You'll wonder why. You'll wonder why that was so necessary. You'll wonder what the teaching is. All right. Do we have questions, dear Santara?
I feel like there should be a pause for reflection. I can feel myself scanning, things that are going on. Yeah, so
let's reflect, huh? I'll take a swig of my cranberry.
I feel like there should be, and we should just all pause, because that is very profound, really, Chrism. But yes, I do have questions. I'm over there now. The first question is not from the group. It was sent. I have a few questions that were sent. So, my mother, when she used to do meditation, she had kriyas and spinal sweeps. And now she feels like thousands of snakes are crawling in her head. She feels sleepy the whole day, but when she goes to sleep, her sleep disappears. Is this all due to Kundalini energy?
Her feet disappear?
No, she's sleepy all day, but when she actually gets to go to sleep, the sleep disappears, so she's not sleeping. Is this?
Sounds like she's kind of in a hypnagogic state, kind of like a perpetual alpha state. Is this all because of the Kundalini? Well, she's had kriyas. I mean, if it's if she's had the Kundalinis and she feels like snakes are in her hair, those are very strong Kundalini symptoms. And so, yeah, I would say everything that is associated with this woman now is from the Kundalini or from her attempts to resist it, which is probably more.
What does
more
that mean for them?
Resisting the Kundalini?
No, you say it's all from the Kundalini or from her attempts to resist it, meaning some of the symptoms are positive.
That if she's trying to resist the symptoms or she's trying to resist the Kundalini control over her body, then those symptoms may become more of a fear-based symptom rather than something that is there and gone and promoting and evolving the individual. Well, even though the person goes into fear, they can still be evolving out of fear. And so, yeah, I would say that it's all due to the Kundalini. Absolutely, indeed. And she should surrender completely to it.
To all of that, yes. Thank you, Chrism. Now, practicing the Kundalini process without any spiritual master, could this have side effects also?
Oh, yes.
I am doing without any spiritual teacher.
Well, then, best of luck to you. I
don't
feel
say over.
I felt for a long time that we stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us. And I think this is especially true to the Kundalini. If I had not been exposed to other people's experiences with Kundalini, if I had not been exposed to the word Kundalini, I might not have ended up doing this radio show or doing the many things that I've done, or that the Kundalini has done through me. So I feel that it is, first of all, it's hard to find someone who's authentic within Kundalini. But if you find that authentic someone that you can trust as a teacher, then I think you should trust that person as a teacher. A lot of people go into this and say, I don't need no teacher. Hell, I can do it all by myself. I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. Oh, the other 5 Tibetans here. Oh, put your tongue up over there. I don't need that. All I need is my willpower. Had one of those guys in a seminar. You do, and you can do it. You can do it all by yourself. It's just going to take a lot longer. And there can be some pretty severe, possibly injurious testing along the way. I did it without a teacher. I know what I'm talking about here. I had no teacher at all.
And I can say I know the difference between having had no teacher and having a teacher. So, I know the difference as well. But I'm wondering, if Kundalini has activated or has awakened for a person, it's possible too that the Kundalini is guiding you to a teacher and that you have to listen to that guidance. We don't land on groups such as Kundalini Awakening Systems, or we don't read Chrism's teachings, for example, without guidance coming, I think, from our Kundalini. So we need to listen
I think
to
you're
the
right.
communications for us.
You bring up a very good point, Santara. And I know that there are people listening right now who received instruction in their dreams to listen to that weird bearded guy from Northern California and to start reading his teachings and to start practicing what he's given to practice you to do. And it's always going to be outside of societal acceptability. And the Kundalini knows this, and I think the Kundalini appreciates that. She appreciates that. And so I do get people coming to me that have been sent directly from the Kundalini to receive some level of teaching that I have to give. And it's a fact. It's an actual fact that this has occurred. Over.
Thanks. So the next question is, I am so-and-so from India. I have a few queries. Initially, when I used to do meditation, after some times, I used to see green color. Afterwards, involuntary movements of my hands and head started. I used to do exercises in meditation. Involuntary movements of my limbs has increased to its apex. I am involuntarily trying to do all kinds of asanas during meditation. Please explain why this is, and is it a sign of Kundalini activation?
It can be a sign of Kundalini activation. It can also be a sign of possession from an entity. As you may remember, Santara, we had the very first Irish seminar, and we had a gentleman come in, start doing all these interesting asanas. Remember him?
I do indeed, yes. Of course.
Spinning around and saying this and looking deeply into people's eyes and all these things. And he was totally possessed, my friends, totally possessed. And not only was he possessed, but he was, there was a cloud of entities around him that were trying to get into other people. And they were just using the asanas as a way to lure people into the state of being possessed. And so I won't say unequivocally that this person is having Kundalini, but I can say that it is having that which resembles Kundalini at this point.
So when that person listens to this answer,
they will have to self-discern. Yeah, they will have to discern, am I making choices in my life that are actually my choices? Have I done practices and anything to activate the Kundalini? What is my level of ethic? How am I being corrupted, if at all? Am I doing kindness for other people and I'm going out and doing selfless service for other people? Am I giving love and kindness and consideration and healing and helpfulness to other people? Am I honest with myself? Am I honest with others? Am I honest with my the integrity that I have for others? Am I tolerant of those who disagree with me or those doing things that irritate me? Just go right down the list. The safeties are a great checklist in this way. And if the answer is no to any part of that might suggest entity infestation, well, then you need to start doing some reversals. Read the Crucible of Reversal on the Kundalini Awakening group. You can just search, put in the search window, Crucible of Reversal, and it'll come up. Over.
Okay, Chrism, thank you. Next question. What is divine merge? Does the divine... Oh, that's badly phrased. 1 second. What is divine merge? Is divine merge the next stage after Kundalini awakening?
No, that's a stage within Kundalini awakening. There is no next stage after Kundalini awakening. There's death, and there's a form of ascension that can occur, but there is no further stage after the awakening event. When you merge with divinity, you merge with the divine, and that never leaves you, unless the divine wants it to leave you for its own specific reason. And even then, it's typically just an illusion. The divine merge is merging with divinity, merging with God, merging with goddess, sacred male, sacred feminine, merging with the force that has created the multiverses, the thousands of millions of verses, universes that exist within this world. If you look at the Hubble Deep Field, the universes just go on into infinity, like cells, like the cells of a body, of the divine body. You merge with the force that is behind that. And, that is the most incredible union, the most incredible merge that a person can experience in life. There is no merging that is beyond that. And then every life after that, if you do come back into the physical form again, well, the divine itself within you will modulate how much of that merge you're still able to experience and understand, or at least digest within the new life form that you're in, the new body, the new child that is now Kundalini awakened and coming in and having to remember everything through the merging of that new body into the divine or the heavenly embrace. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. Now, I'm going to pronounce this badly probably, but I'll try. Have you heard of Brahm Gayan? I am confused about this. How will we end our death and birth cycle?
Oh. Well, I don't know what the Sanskrit word you screwed up is, but I'll tell you what, the way that you end your birth and death cycle, the way you come off of the merry-go-round of reincarnation I'm talking about, you do that by awakening the Kundalini, and you do that by balancing your karma. And in order to awaken the Kundalini, you have to balance a strong level of karma, which is why Kundalini children, Kundalini people have such difficult lives often, is because, they're in that process of balancing that karma. And that can take you off of the necessity for having life after life after life after life, and give you the choice of whether you incarnate or not. Over.
Okay, so I've heard you saying in the past, Chrism, that it doesn't necessarily mean that we get off that cycle of we may come back again. Are you saying that we're given choice once our Kundalini awakens?
I think I just said that.
Okay. I didn't think we always had the choice.
So we look at it. When you reach Kundalini awakening, you may still have some karma to burn, and so of course you may still come back in. The idea is for karmic balancing. Once all the karma has been, what's the word? There's a word there. Once the karma has been absolved, there is no need to come back unless the person chooses to help. These are the people that come back, and they come back specifically to help. And they don't come back as Bill Gates or anybody, mega wealthy. They'll typically come back as a four-person helping others. They'll just have this great level of radiance around them and a great level of saint-like attributes that nobody around them will have. But many, many, many Kundalini souls choose to return. I did.
So Kundalini people, are they creating karma in this life as well, Chrism?
Yes.
I mean, they're balancing.
You can't walk on a lawn without creating karma with the insects and the bacteria and the viruses that you kill.
Yeah.
Much of that can be mitigated by the Kundalini itself, realizing that you're there to help people evolve. You're there to help life evolve towards the divine source. And so any kind of karma that you make can be forgiven through the divine complex rather than through the laws of karma. Do you understand?
Yes.
You
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
And looks like we have a question up here, my dear.
Okay.
Oh, maybe not. That's weird. Listening. Okay, sorry. My bad. Continue. Oh,
okay, I'm coming back. Yeah. I think somebody was cut off and had to come back on because they'd moved down the list there. Okay.
Oh,
okay, will I go on to the next question? Yeah.
Yes.
1 second. I'm going back. Okay. Okay, so I saw many snakes in a dream, and I feared them and killed the snakes. I killed so many snakes in last night's dream. I don't understand its meaning.
It means you're resisting your Kundalini.
Ah, okay.
Over.
Okay, can we just talk a little bit more? So the person, because they're fearful, is it because they're killing the snakes? That is symbolic of their resistance to Chrism. Is that what it's
the ego.
Is?
It's the ego that is trying to take control of the divine force. The divine force is being very patient and sending to them snake after snake after snake after snake, trying to alleviate their fear. I don't think the snakes are attacking them. I think they're attacking the snakes. And I think that that is That's like handing a 2-year-old a fly swatter and having something come to scare the 2-year-old, and that 2-year-old just lashing out. They will get conditioned more and more and more. Certainly, are they in the group? Is this a question from the group?
And this person is in the group, yes.
So their Kundalini has led them into the group. And so that person needs to start taking the information from the group very, very seriously. They don't get to act like a 2-year-old anymore. They have to stop killing the snakes. Stop, because this will turn into a resistance. And the resistance, as some of us know, can be quite provocative in its answer from the Kundalini.
Thank you, Chrism, for expanding on that. Thank you. Okay, next question. What happens after third eye activation to Kundalini awakened?
What happens to third eye activation after the Kundalini awakens?
No, the question is what happens. No, the question is what happens after third eye activation to Kundalini awakened. That's exactly as it's written.
Well, that's kind of a strange question because with the Kundalini awakened, the third eye is already activated. You can't have Kundalini activation without having the third eye already going there. It kind of comes with the process.
So if it had been, what happens after third eye activation to Kundalini activated? Would that have been a different answer?
Repeat that, please.
It's probably semantics. If the question hadn't said Kundalini awakened, if it had said to the Kundalini activated, would there be a different answer? What happens after third eye activation to a Kundalini activated person? That would be a different thing, would it not?
I suppose it could be. The third eye would slowly begin to condition towards awakening. With the spinal sweep, if the Uraeus comes through the third eye, which is that blue serpent that comes through the forehead and out the third eye, well then the third eye has been and will go through a level of evolution that can open it to the process of seeing with your eyes closed, or seeing an expanded level of reality with all three eyes opened. Open.
Okay, thanks, Chrism. From the group, this was someone recently told me they were stunned to be treated badly by a Kundalini person, and that they themselves were not at fault. So in that context, whom do you suggest this person forgives?
Both parties. You forgive the person that hurt you, and you forgive you forgive yourself for being offended, not being expanded enough to embrace the negativity as a teaching rather than a hurtful event. I mean, and this is easy to do. I get stung all the time from people without deserving it. And sometimes I'm given to respond to that in kind, and sometimes I'm just given to back off. Of course, that's from a teacher's point of view. From an individual, just a regular Joe Schmo on the street, I would say that you just forgive. And if you're not at fault, well, you already know you're not at fault. So you just forgive. And the scenario is this. If you forgive strongly enough, if you're deeply enough into the awareness of forgiveness, there can be nobody that can hurt you. you never get offended. Because your forgiveness is so strong, it precedes you. It precedes the ego affectation of being offended.
Say that again?
It precedes the egoic affectation for being offended. Forgiveness does. If your forgiveness is strong enough and inclusive enough in how you are within the Kundalini, then you never have an opportunity to be offended. That's what a saint does. And saints are made by Kundalini. Hello? Is that you?
That was my phone vibrating, yeah, Chris, and I had a message come in. It's interesting, too, because the question is about the person that was not at fault was treated badly by a Kundalini person. So there's a form of judgment there, too, is there not, that a Kundalini person should know better?
This just happened to me recently. A woman came on one of the groups and starts teaching her teachings on the group, and I began to challenge her teachings and ask her not to teach there. And she's teaching an incorrect level of education within the Kundalini, and yet she is offended. I mean, I could even read you. She just wrote this really big, terrible thing to me about how bad I am. Let's see what she says.
That's the issue.
She's basically saying, let me see here. Yeah. She's getting into some of her personal stuff, and so I don't want to read that. But she basically has a problem with my approach, and she has my problem with my approach and my counseling and my giving teachings and attacking her point of view, and and that I'm not, my behavior suggests that I'm not quite so far along the path as I would have others believe, and my presentation has a very negative ring to it, and blah blah blah. And then she says, "I wish you well in your endeavors." That cracks me up when people do that. I think you're a serial killer, but really, I hope you have a nice day. I think. So yeah, so this was a Kundalini person that got offended by me, another Kundalini person. Now, if the roles were reversed, and I was in her classroom, and I was like trying to dominate her teachings or try to change the venue of teaching in her classroom, and I did the same thing, and she chastised me for that, which she would rightfully should do. If my forgiveness, being the victim now, if my forgiveness was expanded enough, strong enough, I would never feel the pain. I would never feel the hurt, because it would have already been forgiven. I would expanded forgiveness, like St. Francis of Assisi had. Expanded forgiveness energetically precedes the individual. So in a way, within the many zones of the Kundalini radiance, there's a buffer zone that is created by very, very strong levels of forgiveness, which actually blends into strong levels of tolerance and forgiveness. Just a second. Excuse me. I'm going to have another one too. I always get two. Most of the time. And so that buffer zone, which transforms into tolerance and forgiveness, not yet. Sorry. Precedes an individual. Just like my sneeze is preceding. speech.
Not very exciting, will he?
So yeah, so
okay.
just like the so when your forgiveness merges, forgiveness is an aspect of love, and love has many facets, of which tolerance is one, and kindness is one, and strictness is another, self-discipline is another, exo-discipline is another. All of these levels are actually expressions of love. And as two of those expressions merge by virtue of a divine force that is expanding them, that will precede you into any quality of interaction with other Kundalini people or not. Now, supposedly, within that scenario, the person would know that they're stepping on the resident teacher's toes. They're stepping on their teachings, and so because of that, we know that the individual has not progressed to the point where their forgiveness has merged into a very, very great level of energetic radiance about them. We know that is not the case because they're being offended. They're not forgiving. Okay, but I'm giving this individual an option to go that way within their Kundalini, to go into the expansion. And once you go to the expansion, there is no room for hurt because your ego has also gone into that expansion. Your ego has also been evolved into grace. Instead of resisting grace or trying to control grace, the ego has been evolved into grace. And as that evolution occurs for the person, there is no room for hurt or to be offended by the actions of another. Because you'll be mindful. You'll be mindful of what you're doing. You'll be mindful of where you're doing what you're doing. You'll be mindful of the other consciousness that have a certain specific investment in the area and the place where you're doing what you're doing. And so you'll be very mindful of that. And from that mindfulness, you'll have the capacity to discern whether or not the information that you're putting forth in the way that you're putting it forth is going to be acceptable or not. You understand? Is it clear as mud?
I do. No, that's very clear, Chrism. I'd like another pause now while we just leave that, filter in. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I suggest if people are listening to this on the archive, press the pause button occasionally and close your eyes and just take some time to absorb what Chrism says, which we can't really do on the live show, but it certainly can be done on the archive. And so I think even those of us listening live now would do well maybe to listen again and to use that pause button, because there is so much in what has been being taught there from the Kundalini, from Chrism, that it would be worth, listening to this show again. Okay. Next question, Chrism, is from the groups. It says, death seemed like a cruel joke to me. Any thoughts? What helps you to get over the knowledge that we are all going to die? What do you believe happens after death? And then on the group they said, no doom and gloom comments. I don't think I could handle those right now. But and there was a good response, Chrism. So could you say something about that, please?
Read what I responded and I'll expand on it.
Read what you responded.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, here,
okay.
If I can go there too.
I have no idea what you said. I'm going over to Facebook now.
Yeah, I think it's right here. I think it's just like,
have you?
It's hard to realize that I'm going to die. Yeah, it's right here. I'll read it.
Okay.
Right at the top of the page there. Just got lucky. 15 comments. And so this is what the Kundalini in me wrote. Death is a birth. It is life that gestates, towards this birth. Death is the entrance to the truths that we must trust while in the classroom of life. Kundalini is also a death to reliance on mundane, limited truth. Both of these deaths serve us as we evolve towards our divine nature. This, too, is a death from spiritual expression into the divine infinity. I don't know if that's helpful. Everything is birth and death. Everything comes and goes. It's like the tidal force. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. The water falls down as rain and is evaporated up as steam, and then falls down as rain and then goes up and then goes down and then goes up and then goes down. I mean, death and life are are incredibly intertwined. We experience death of the physical so that we can begin our process of learning from our karma and making those redemptive corrections, and then moving into greater levels of incarnation into divine structure and divine behaviors. So death is a birth, and in many ways, life is a death. If you look at it, from a physical standpoint, we're dying all the time. We have cells that are dying and cells that are replicating. New cells are formed, and old cells die and are sloughed off into the fecal matter. And so we are constantly living and dying at the same time all the time. Death is never far from us. Death is a part of who we are. And it's a part of this environment here. Death and birth. Death and birth. They happen together, and they are there to be together. And there are components of the human body that do not have to age. We do not have to die after, say, the average span would say be 80 years old. We do not have to die at the age of 80 averagely. We could live to 1,000. I know that if you go into the Sumerian kings list, King Sargon of Sumeria, which was the father of Astarte and Tiamat and all of these different goddesses, he lived thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and this was documented, of course, by the Sumerians themselves. Something changed between that ancient time and the current physiology of people, where we have much, much, much shorter lifespans, but we get a much greater opportunity for karmic review than perhaps somebody who is living for 1,000 years. We live 100 years. Just say that I'll pretend that we live 100 years. We have 10 times more opportunity for karmic review and correction than the person who's living 1,000. So in a way, we're evolving faster because of the ability to go back and review the karma, make the redemptive corrections, and then come back and live those redemptive corrections. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm. Yes.
Boy, she's really firing them off both barrels today, I swear.
Feeling it. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the end of the questions, Chrism. And
okay, all
the
right.
timing is spot on. We've only 5 minutes to go.
Well, once again, I would like to thank everybody who's listening. I see all the different area codes, New York and Minnesota and Washington State, and, of course, the Emerald Isle. I'd like to thank everybody who has participated in asking the questions on the group so that you could read them here. I would like people to know that you can visit me or the information that comes through me on Chrism.Kundalini on the YouTube network if you want to watch videos. We have about 340. And then, of course, on Yahoo, we have Kundalini Awakening Systems 1 at yahoogroup.com. And we have Kundalini Healing there as well. We also have about 8 groups on the Facebook network and 1 group on the Google Plus network, Kundalini Awakening ! As well as Kundalini Awakening ! On Facebook, Kundalini Awakening Systems 2, Kundalini Awakening Systems 3, Kundalini Radiance Community, Kundalini People, Kundalini Healing, both public and private. We have many opportunities with secret groups or public groups so that people can feel like they can express themselves without their job finding out, or their doctor finding out, or their spouse finding out if that's the case. I would like to thank Rosemary and Goliath and Joey Frost, both who traveled with us down to Peru this last February, and blessings of love and grace to both of you for putting on that seminar. And I know Rosemary did the greater part of the work there, but Joey, you added into it too. Can't do things without Mother Frost, Mother Winter, especially. And I think you should really start improving the level of winter time that comes there. And if I ever get to come back to Minnesota again, I want snowdrifts. I'd like to thank Katie, and I'd like to thank her friend Ken. Katie was instrumental in bringing us to Mankato. And we met Katie at one of the talks we gave in Mankato, and so I want to thank Katie as well. Katie's a very, very strong member of the Minnesota Kundalini community. I would like to thank everybody in the community. I would like to thank you, Amelia Centara, for everything that you add, and I'd like to thank Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez for her connection to La Araña, and I'd like to send her healing as well. Let us all send healing to Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez. Oh my gosh, what an interesting lesson she's being given. And I'd like to thank Emma and Mary Jean, Cole Kundalini guest 1240, and a secret caller in the 321 area code. Thank you for coming in and listening. And I would like to go ahead and give you the opportunity to say goodbye or good night, Santara.
Goodbye, good night, everyone. See you next week, same time. Bye.
And I agree with you, and I'm going to go ahead and end it the way it was started, and here we go.
Herr Kahn, wie holt man eigentlich das Double?
Ganz einfach, mit einem neuen Samsung QLED TV.
Jetzt QLED TV Aktionsgerät kaufen und Gutscheine für 6 Monate Live-Fußball aus europäischen Top-Ligen bekommen. Über Sky Ticket, The Zone und Eurosport Player in der Samsung Sportworld App. Mehr Infos auf samsung.de/sportworld.
Nur bis zum 17. Juni.